Thanks, Nino, for the introduction. It's great to be here. I've been the Minister of Energy for almost 3 years now for the province of Ontario, and it has been a very, very exciting time in the energy sector here in Ontario as the energy transition is continuing to happen. It's great to see Carolyn Caldwell as well from the Ontario Energy Board, who's here, and we've been working in close collaboration with the OEB and a number of different agencies in ensuring that this transition goes as seamlessly as possible as we move toward an electrified future in Ontario. It's great also to be here to kick off the Expo this year and bring the opening remarks. And it looks like the next couple of days here in Toronto are going to be very, very exciting ones. There's a wealth of information on all things related to electric vehicles here under the roof, and almost 2,000 delegates are attending this year, so it's a great success story. All of this really couldn't be more timely, because as more and more drivers and businesses are making that switch to electric vehicles, our government's positioning Ontario as North America's automotive innovation hub and creating a thriving domestic EV battery ecosystem. But that position of leadership wasn't always a sure thing. Just a couple of years ago, we were in a pretty dicey position in our auto sector. I'm sure for many of you who are here this morning, you'll remember back to 2018, and the previous government presided over the fastest rising electricity prices in North America. That's not great news if you're trying to sell electric vehicles. And the impact of that increasing electricity rate and an uncompetitive business environment actually had a lot of the companies who are represented here today at the Expo in a pretty uncertain place in their future in Ontario. As a matter of fact, when we first formed government in 2018-19, I was the Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade. It was the Premier and I on a Sunday afternoon in mid-November that took the call from the head of General Motors Global, advising us that after 100 years of building cars in Oshawa, that they were going to be closing down that facility. And you'll all remember the comments by Sergio Marchionne, who was the head of Chrysler at the time, when referring to the environment here in Ontario as the worst and most uncompetitive place in North America to build vehicles. Now, the head of Global GM on the phone that day, and ironically, I was at an arena in Trenton, Ontario with my daughter's hockey team, said, "Look, guys, we know it's nothing you've done. You've inherited a real mess here, but we have all the confidence in the world that you're going to fix things. You're going to bring some certainty to the electricity market, and you're going to get us back on the right track in Ontario." And I'm happy to say now, just a few years later, that the vehicles are rolling off the line again in Oshawa at the General Motors plant, and all kinds of other lines across the province. So, you know, when the head of GM Global gave us that challenge to get things right, we set out on a different course. We've lowered the energy costs across Ontario. We've cut billions of dollars worth of red tape for businesses. And when I was Economic Development Minister, I was pleased to introduce the first Driving Prosperity Plan to help make Ontario a leader in the automotive sector again. And really, what a difference that's made. Minister Fedeli has come out with his own Driving Prosperity Plan too since then, just moving towards building the cars of the future and ensuring that we had the skilled tradespeople that were going to be available to build the cars of the future. As Minister Fedeli would say, our current Minister of Economic Development, in 2019, Reuters reported that companies were planning to spend $300 billion globally in the EV sector, but none of that at that time was planned for Canada. And today, just 4 years later, we've quickly become a leader in building EVs and batteries with the help of historic investments. And you all heard the news just last week. It's a massive, massive investment that Honda is making. $15 billion in our EV sector, which is the largest in Canadian history. And they're not just building one new plant in Alliston next to the current facility, they're actually building 4 new manufacturing plants here in Ontario to create the first comprehensive EV supply chain in the country. So it's incredible news. And that paired with the recent news with Volkswagen in St. Thomas and Nexstar down in Windsor and Umicore in Loyalist Township in my part of the province in Eastern Ontario, we've attracted more than $43 billion over the past few years. And just think of that comment that was made in 2019 by Reuters saying that of the $300 billion, none of it was coming to Ontario, and we've been able to attract $43 billion to our province. Our government's not stopping there. We're continuing to move forward. We also know how important it is to support the rollout of EV charging stations across the province, giving drivers the confidence to make the switch. And that's why we've provided funding to build thousands of new stations in underserved areas of the province, filling gaps in public charging infrastructure and giving more drivers the confidence that they need to transition to EVs. Through the EV Charge-On program alone, that's being run through the Ministry of Transportation, our government is investing $91 million more to support the installation of public EV chargers outside of Ontario's large urban centres. That includes at community hubs and hockey arenas and Ontario's highway rest areas and carpool parking lots and Ontario parks all across rural and remote parts of Ontario. And there should be news on where all those charging stations are going a little bit later on this spring. Another great example of the work that we're doing is the creation of the EV Charging Network, with fast charging stations now available at all 20 renovated en route stations located along the province's busiest highways, with more stations yet to come over the next couple of years. And earlier this year, I announced a new standardized, streamlined procedure for companies wishing to install new public charging stations. Until now, each of Ontario's 58 local utilities, the LDCs, have had different procedures for connecting EV charging stations in the communities, and that's created major challenges, and companies are dealing with those challenges to provide public charging. So what we did and what we announced is, starting in a few weeks on May 27th, all of those local distribution companies, all of those local utilities will follow a standard process now that makes it easier for charging providers to deploy new stations. So eliminating that red tape and making sure that it's easier to get those stations in communities. There are still other barriers that are facing the EV charging sector, however. Today, EV chargers that are found in areas with lower demand experience sharp peaks in demand when an EV is plugged in and charging, but the overall energy consumption is low because they're not used for most of the day. The existing rate structure makes these stations very expensive to operate, and the unfortunate result is that electric vehicle charging stations that are expected to have a low utilization are either not built or they're operating at a loss, and that means less chargers in rural parts of our province, and drivers who don't make the switch because they don't know where they're going to be able to charge up and continue on in their travels. So that's why today I'm pleased to announce that our government has asked the Ontario Energy Board to explore options for a new electric vehicle charger discount electricity rate for public EV charging stations in these low demand areas of the province. A new discount electricity rate would support electric vehicle adoption across the province by reducing the electricity costs for charging infrastructure where demand is only beginning to emerge. This could make charging infrastructure more economic in more places, giving Ontario's drivers greater confidence that chargers are going to be there when they need them, no matter what part of the province they're in. So starting this month, the Ontario Energy Board is beginning public consultations on this new rate, with the intent of making the new rate available to public EV charging providers via our utilities that already exist in these communities by January 1st of 2026. All this work and more is bringing us closer to a clean energy future that's driven by electrification. And as more and more drivers choose EVs, we're making sure that Ontario's clean electricity grid can power the growing automotive sector. And that's why last summer I released our plan. The plan is called Powering Ontario's Growth, and the plan is to build the energy infrastructure, the electricity infrastructure, that we'll need for a more electrified province. Our plan includes 3 more small modular reactors in addition to Canada's first grid-scale SMR, which is already under construction at the new nuclear site at Darlington, just east of Toronto, and working with Bruce Power to build the first large-scale nuclear build in over 30 years. Those 2 announcements alone will add 6 gigawatts of clean, reliable, affordable, emissions-free power to our grid to power the electric vehicles that will be rolling off the lines at all of these different manufacturers across the province. Our plan powering Ontario's growth also includes a new competitive procurement for non-emitting energy resources to meet growing demand, as well as complement our recent battery storage procurements, which are rolling out in communities right across the province as well, and will soon be on grid in late 24, early 25 to make better use of the other non-emitting generation that we have, the intermittent renewables that we have across the province, making our system work that much more efficiently. And we're expanding our transmission system, which is really important as well, to better connect regions of the province to our clean electricity grid, in particular in Northern Ontario, but right across the province, to allow new generation to occur in all parts of our province and ensure that we can have the charging stations in every part of our province. In the end, all this work is going to give us the power to champion advancements in green technology like the ones that you see all around you here at the Enercare Centre as part of this conference today. The electric vehicles that will be rolling off the lines, as I say, in Ontario and preparing us for an increasingly electrified economy. It's a very energizing time to be the Minister of Energy in Ontario. I thank all of you for your attention this morning and all of you for your participation in our energy transition here in Ontario, and I wish you nothing but the best over the next couple of days here at this great event. Thanks, everyone, and go Leafs, go!